Thank you to everyone for coming to our workshop, especially so close to the holiday season. We appreciate you all making it out. This workshop, like always, will be recorded, so we'll be sending out the recording afterwards. So for today, what you can expect, we are super excited to have Corinna Bench from Shared Legacy Farms and from My Digital Farmer. She is a regular here on our workshops. We're so excited to have her here today to talk all about sales metrics. We know that sales metrics can be daunting, scary. Like, where do you start? What do you track? There's so much data. So Corinna is really going to distill it down here today to the 3 metrics that you should be tracking. She's going to go through how to pull them, how to measure them, and how to scale them. After Corinna's presentation, we'll have Kyle here from Local-Line. He's going to jump in to show a bit of the back office of Local-Line, where this data is housed, how you can pull it, how you can track it as well. And then at the end, we'll have tons of time for a live Q&A. So if you have questions for either Corinna or Kyle, please either pop those into the chat, or we also have that Q&A function. You can find it there at the bottom. So without further ado, I will pass it over to Corinna to get us started.
Cool. All right. Well, we're talking about the 3 most important metrics for farm growth: what to measure and optimize to double your farm revenue. I know that is a boastful claim, but this is pretty cool stuff. Before I get started, I want to make sure I say I'm not saying that you shouldn't measure other metrics. There are definitely other metrics that you should be looking at, but I have found when it comes to e-commerce that these 3 really rise to the top. And I think sometimes that's helpful to distill that down for people and offer some clarity. I like to start out my presentations by telling stories. And so I'm going to share a story about the time I missed my exit. Has that ever happened to you? Raise your hand. This was like maybe 4 years ago. It was right before, it was probably around the start of COVID or after COVID, but we were traveling as a family. We did a big road trip to the Grand Canyon, and we were in Utah or somewhere in one of those states driving for a while. And if you know that part of the country, you know that the time between exits is a whole lot bigger. They're not just right after one another. So if you miss an exit, you're on that highway for quite a while before you can get off. And we were on such a highway, not really sure of the territory because we're not from there. And I was in charge. I was driving. Thought I knew what I was doing. We came to a key pivotal point, as it turns out, where we should have gone one direction and taken the exit. It was going to take us onto a totally different interstate, and I missed it because I wasn't really looking at my GPS. And I feel like that is a great kind of opening story to illustrate what we're going to talk about today, because as it turned out, I missed that exit. We had to drive probably like, I think it was 20 to 25 minutes before the next exit, and then get back on the highway, go back the other direction. So we lost an hour, right? Which was a lot of time when you're doing a road trip, when you're already in the car that day for 7 hours, and then you just added another one. You're like, oh, so it cost us something. And I guess the point that I want to make here is that, we have to know where we're going. And it really helps to have kind of a GPS, to have a roadmap. If you don't pay attention to that GPS, to where you're going, you're not going to hit your target. You're going to get off course. You're going to waste time, and time is money. So it's really important as you grow your farm business, not just to focus on how much you love being a farmer and growing the product. You've got to master some of these business essentials. And if you don't, you kind of do so at your peril. You may not make it, to the finish line. And so it's important for you to become a student of some of this business stuff if you want to do well. What just happened? I have no idea what just happened there. Can you guys, now you're seeing my Zoom. Hold on.
Yeah, I can see you. I think the connection might be a little bit off,
Wonky
but I think
with. Okay, I'm sorry. We'll just pretend that didn't happen. All right. Okay, so let's move on to the next slide. So how many of you are actually tracking data? And if so, what metrics are you currently tracking? This is the interactive part of the webinar. I would like for you to type something into the chat right now. What are you actively checking on a regular basis? And you can decide that for yourself, whether it's weekly or monthly or quarterly. And go ahead and write those in. Nina, if you don't mind letting me know what you're seeing, I would love to hear.
Of course. First one is from Charlotte Labor. Maria says sales per area per month.
Okay, anybody else?
Oh, got a few more coming in. Matt, sales by week, sales by crop. Rachel, labor, sales per location per market. Susan, CSA sales per season. Beth, daily store sales per POS. Jill, sales and labor. Mike, daily sales, sales per week from Sean. Ashley, sales by item. A lot of sales.
Okay, good.
Sales. Yeah.
Yeah. That's totally the obvious one. Yeah, I love that. Okay, good. So I want to make the point that it's really important to keep our eye on the GPS, right? There are certain metrics that we want to keep our eye on, like our North Star. And if we lose sight of those, we're going to go off course and we're going to run into trouble. So what are these super important mission critical metrics? That is kind of the focus. And what if I told you that you can literally double your revenue if you focus on just 3 key metrics? This is what's going to be really exciting in the mic drop moment later on in the presentation. So the key takeaways of today's class, hopefully, will be what are those 3 mission critical metrics that you should be tracking and really looking at? What you have to do with those metrics to double your revenue. I'll give you some suggestions for how to increase each of those metrics. Like what does that look like in real life if you want them to go up? What do you have to do in your marketing? And then we'll also discuss at the end, Kyle's going to walk through how do you find those metrics in your e-commerce provider, which hopefully is local line. If not, you'll know where to try to look for them in the one you have. Okay, so here's the first one. No surprise here. Number of active customers. Now, this is the one that you probably all thought of. Yes, if I want to grow the amount of money I make, I need to increase the number of customers I have. But this one is also, I think, one of the hardest because new customers can be expensive if you're trying to acquire them through ads or, even if you do, once you have this customer, they often don't spend very much with you in their first few interactions. Have you noticed that? It takes a while for them to become a person that buys more frequently. So this tends to be the default setting for many farm businesses. If they're like, oh, I want to double my revenue, or I want to grow my business, I just need to find more customers. Okay, well, that is true. You do need to find new customers. This is one of the metrics you want to be tracking, but there's more to it than this. But write this one down. This one's an important one. How do we track that? Well, you can use your online store analytics to go and find the total number of unique active customers over a given period. So I'm not talking about the total number that could possibly buy from you. I'm talking about how many customers actively purchased from you this week or this quarter or this month, whatever you're tracking. Okay. And that is what's called active customers in local line. Okay, metric number 2 is this: average order value, also known as AOV. This is the average amount of money that a customer will spend per transaction. This makes sense. Our revenue will go up as a business if we can get more of our customers to spend a little bit more on average every time they come to our point of sale. So if your average order value when people shop your local line store is currently $30 a week, if you can get everyone to bump up to $35 a week, yes, you will grow your revenue. Okay, so this is a really big one. We'll show you just how big in just a minute. The way that you calculate this is to take the total number of your total revenue, divide it by the total number of orders, and that will give you your average order value. So if you earned $5,000 in your online store this coming week or month, you had 50 orders that got you there, then your average order value is roughly $100 per customer. Okay. Now in in local line, this is actually calculated for us. Kyle's going to show you where to find this later. So you don't even have to do the math, but that will kind of tell you for any given period of time. So this was a report I ran for a 23-day period. So for the month of November, the things that we were pitching, this is what people were spending on average in our store for our recent Thanksgiving promotion. Okay, metric number 3 is the order frequency. How often are your active customers buying from you? So this is where you might have Deanna buys 4 times a year from me. If I can get Deanna to buy 6 times a year, I'm going to make more money. Or if I can get all of my customers to shift from only buying twice a month to 3 times a month or 2.5 times a month, you're going to see your revenue increase. Okay. These are the big ones. That makes sense, right? So the way that we track frequency is we take the total number of orders and we divide it by the total number of active customers. This is I think, a formula that's actually helpful to write down because this may not come intuitively to you. So if you had 208 orders and there were 130 active customers in that time period making those 208 orders, your frequency is 1.6 times, okay? And then your goal is to try and get that number to go up a little bit. All right, so Kyle's going to talk about how you find this, but you have to actually plug that into a formula to figure out what that number is, and you'd need to know what the number of active customers is as part of that process. All right, so these are the only 3 multipliers, or excuse me, the only 3 metrics that matter, in my opinion, when it comes to e-commerce, or at least they're the ones that matter most. Total active paying customers, average order value, and the average purchase frequency, okay? I call these the 3 multipliers of revenue, and they're really the only relevant levers when it comes to growing your business. Every action, every tactic, every strategy, every initiative, every product launch, product idea you come up with is merely a means to increase one of these 3 multipliers. And your revenue is really nothing more than just the total number of customers multiplied by your average order value times the average amount of times that those customers buy. So if you have 1,000 customers, I just chose 1,000 because it's easy to multiply. It could be 100, whatever. 1,000 customers who each buy on average spend $10 with you, and they buy 1 time, you're going to make 10 grand, right? Now, let's say that I want to double my revenue in the next quarter, in the next 90 days. How would I go about reverse engineering that? And a lot of farmers, and I'm holding my hand up here, this is kind of how I used to think too. My first default, like my bias, is to just say, I need to find more customers. How do I get more customers? And like I said earlier, that's definitely one way to do it, but it's really hard because you often end up having to spend money to acquire those customers, and you lose a lot of your margin that way. Or they don't typically return very well on the investment at first. It's just really hard to do that. So if that's not the ideal best way to do it, then what should you be doing? So you don't need to double any one single multiplier. All you have to do, this is sort of the mind-blowing part for me, is you just need to increase each multiplier by 30%. So instead of 1,000 customers spending $10 each time, you need to raise all of those by 30%. You need 1,300 customers spending an average of $13, buying 1.3 times, and you will earn $21,970. That's over 2x growth. So you 2x your growth while you keep more revenue in your pocket. And you scale your brand by acquiring new customers, but each one of those new customers does double duty for you. Are you seeing that? So they'll make bigger orders more frequently over the lifetime of their relationship with your brand. And that is where the power is. These are the only, in my opinion, relevant multipliers of revenue and growth. I guess you could argue that raising the price might be another way that you could pull a lever if you raise that by 30%. But if you track and improve these metrics weekly, monthly, quarterly, your business will thrive. So that's the framework. Now let's apply it to a real world example so that we can actually set some future growth targets for your business and then reverse engineer the numbers for each of the multipliers. So I'm going to show you how I'm actually showing you my farm business stats right now. This was hard for me to do, by the way. I'm like, what are they going to think when they see my numbers? But this is a calculator on Google Sheet. We're going to share this with you after the metrics class. This is inside of Farm Marketing School. I know Nina's going to email it to you so that you can use it for yourself. But this is going to kind of show you now how we go about reverse engineering the process. So I have to think about how I'm doing this. So I'm going to escape because I want to go live into the sheet. Okay, here we go. I first want to start out by saying that I have multiple enterprises in my business. So we have a CSA, we have wholesale, but we do have an online store. And that's the metrics for the online store are what you see represented in this calculator. We're trying to grow this. We have been for the last couple of years. And this multiplier kind of helped me out the last 2 quarters a ton. And so that's one of the reasons why I'm excited to share it with you. So you set the time periods, okay, into quarters. So you see here, I've got quarter 1, quarter 2, quarter 3, quarter 4. Then you also kind of duplicate it again, but you set it by a 6-month report. So January through June, and then on an annual level as well. Okay, so we do it kind of 3 different ways. You could also do this by month if you want. And I suppose if you're a huge business and you're like really like moving cash flow, you could even do it by week if you wanted to, but I'm just going to show it to you by quarters. So you set the time periods. And then we're going to define the orders, the active customers, the frequency, and the average order value for each of these sections. Okay, and that's what you see here in the rows. Now I include the orders here because you'll need that number. I know we didn't talk about that in the presentation, but you'll need that number to calculate the frequency, because the frequency is simply taking the orders divided by active customers. And you'll see that formula right here. Okay. So Google Sheet will actually calculate, oh, sorry, it's so distracting. Will actually calculate that number for you based on what you enter into the red cells. Seeing that? So you're going to go into Local Line or whatever your e-commerce platform is. You're going to find the data for orders, active customers, and average order value. You're going to tuck them into these red spots. And then these numbers in the green are going to automatically shift, and down here as well. Now over here is the multiplier column. And you'll notice here I have a 30% increase. So this is taking this number over here in the next 90 days. If I can raise the number of active customers from quarter 4 by 30%, that means I need to get 359 active customers in my next quarter. Are y'all seeing how this works? If I want, and then you can change this number. So right now it's set for 30%, but if I'm like, man, that just seems like too big, there's no way I can pull that off, I'm a small farm, then maybe you're like, I'm going to do 10%. Okay, you can pop it in like that, and it'll shift the number to you for you, and you'll also then see how much it will affect your revenue. So you can play around with these numbers. The best practice is to try and hit 30% on all of them, but sometimes you can do 1.4 on some and 1.2 on others, and it still gets you to the same number. You might not even have the goal to double your revenue. Maybe you'd be excited if you just did a little bit more. And you can then see, how do I get there? So that's what I love. So one more thing I'm going to show you here. This can be maybe a little bit more helpful. I just wanted to show you I took away some of the columns here, but my quarter 2 over here, I used these stats. I used this multiplier to help me create a goal. And this is what it was telling me I was going to need to do if I wanted to double my income. This is actually what I ended up doing in Q3. So you'll see that I exceeded on all points my goal with the exception of average order value. That hit exactly on. And so I more than doubled my revenue. All right, I hope you can see that. We're going to share this calculator with you. Let me go back to presenting. Why won't it let me present? Oh no, here we go. Okay. Okay, so hopefully you're seeing what I'm seeing. I thought this was so cool when I learned this. These are the three metrics that matter the most: customers, average order value, and frequency. And if we can focus on those like a hawk, that's when we will see our revenue increase in the e-commerce space. So write those down, make a little poster of them, slap it on your wall, and stare at them every week. Everything you do should be all about trying to get one of those levers to go higher. Now, how do you go about raising your customer number? Let's do a real quick list here. You can run ads on social media. You can leverage influencers. You could invest in SEO to get more customers to see you on Google. You could collaborate with complementary businesses to cross-promote with them so that you share customers and some of their customers become your customers. Maybe you have a product that where your item is featured in their stuff is featured in this product. You both talk about it and you kind of grow your customer base that way. You could have seasonal promotions, lower dollar offers to attract new folks, and then you serve up new offers to them later that are more expensive. Okay. Another really great idea is to just develop a new product line that's going to attract a new client base. Central Park Farms in Langley, British Columbia, did this by creating a frozen foods line. And she used her meat produce to work with a chef. They started making frozen prepared foods. And she not only sold the meat at retail to the chef, so she made money there, but then she got the product back from him and was able to charge more for it and make profit off of that, in some cases 20, 30%. So I thought this was a brilliant idea. I'm actually trying to copy it for my farm next year. But that's a whole new product line, attracted a completely new customer base for her that was all about convenience. So now she's got way more customers. What about AOV? So what are some ways to increase the average order value? Well, you could have an order minimum in your online store. I did not do this. I'm kind of embarrassed to say that until this year. And remember, I showed you how my AOV went up from that one quarter to the next. You know why? Because I created an order minimum. And so it went up. It was so easy. I had a little pushback from like 3 customers, but not a big deal. But this is just something you can say, hey, in order for me to remain profitable, I need to have you guys order at least a certain amount. So establishing an order minimum, we'll show you how to do that here in a minute with the tech. You can suggest complementary items during the checkout process. You can upsell them at checkout or after checkout. You can increase the free shipping threshold. I saw some of you earlier on when you were sharing promo ideas. You said that free shipping when you hit $200, that's a brilliant offer idea to try and get the AOV to come up, right? So it's one thing to say, yeah, I need to get these numbers, these levers, I need to pull these levers, I need them to go up. But if you don't create a mechanism to actually make it happen, it probably won't happen. So that's why we talk about some of these suggestions for how you can go about doing that. Creating a bundle, that's another awesome way to get the AOV to come up. Is there something you could sell just by bundling it with something else? Sometimes the product only moves when it's in a bundle. I don't know if you found that to be true. You could try calling it something like a starter bundle. Now that's going to tell a person not only that it's a bundle, but that's where I should start buying something from you. So how you name it goes a long way. And then how do you get your order frequency to go up? Well, you could add a new product mid-launch, forcing them to come back a second time. I do this quite a bit now where I send out my list through Local Line on the weekend. Here's what's available. And then on like Monday, I'll drop a really valuable limited product into the store and I'll tell everyone about it. Be like, oh, this is just in. We had a bunch of this come in, not too many of them. And it'll make a lot of those people go back to the store and buy again. And guess what? There's a minimum, an order minimum. So they have to hit the order minimum again. So I sometimes will get people buying multiple times. Launch a loyalty program with rewards for people who are frequent buyers. You could also create a promotion that targets a very specific buyer. And of course, subscriptions, which I know Local Line offers, is a great way to create guaranteed income that you can kind of count on from week to week. One of the things I love about subscriptions is that it creates a buyer's habit for your customer. And anytime you can get a customer to buy again and you increase that frequency, it creates more loyalty. So there's a kind of a side benefit for the frequency lever. All right, so those are the three big ones. How are we increasing active customers? How are we increasing AOV? How are we increasing the frequency of purchase? This is all you should keep your eye on. I mean, there are some other metrics that are important, but these are the main ones. And when we do this, we're going to see our revenue grow. And I hope this has been helpful, maybe hopeful as well, that it kind of gives you a little bit of clarity about, oh, now I know what I need to work on to try and make more revenue. Let's move to the tech. How do we actually find these numbers inside of Local Line? Kyle, take it away. I'm going to stop my share.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Corinna. That was fantastic. I'm sure there's a lot of folks excited for that calculator you showed there. It was really awesome stuff. And yeah, I'll take over the screen here and we'll start with those keystones that you were speaking about. Hopefully my screen is visible for everyone.
Yep, we can see it.
Perfect. So you can see here, I'm in the Local Line reports table, and I've actually done a date range here from November 1st to the end of November. And if we start with, as I mentioned, Corinna's keystone metrics, we can actually see my revenue is already defined for me. In her slide, you could see it right here in net sales. I can get a little more in depth there if I want to focus on a particular price list and look at the revenue generated from that price list, I can do so. And then I can also see, oh, let me just clear that off. And then I can see the order count, like she mentioned. So I have 31 orders here in that given period, November 1st to 30th. What I like here when calculating the frequency is my filter is going to maintain its presence here. So I can actually see I have a small but loyal group of customers here. So we had 4 active customers in that period, and there were 31 orders. So to get the frequency that Corinna was speaking to, we would take the 31, divide it by 4. Hopefully a lot of you have more than 4 active customers in that given period. But in doing so, we can see, I believe, that number there would be around 7.75. So, yep, 7.75. And I can utilize that frequency metric to try to hit that 30%, excuse me, growth. As far as the average order value metric, we already have that there as well. So if I take that 7.75, multiply it by the average order amount, and multiply it by the customers, I'm going to get my revenue, which again, we've calculated here for you. Some other additional reports on the order table would be the average amount of products in the order. If you're running coupons, another great way to engage new customers to increase the count of customers you're having. You'll be able to access reporting on the savings, or if you utilize store credit, similarly. All of these reports can be downloaded in your specified file type here, so CSV or Excel. And I can go through on the customer table also. And one of my favorite newer features is I can actually search for one of those customers to get even more granular. Corinna spoke to checking reports daily, weekly, monthly, quarterly. Maybe you have a high value customer and you want to get more insight into their behaviors and their trends. You can actually filter specific to that customer, download those reports, or generate a PDF of their sales snapshot. And if you sell to buying groups, maybe you sell wholesale or you sell to multiple people in an organization, you can also filter by that company. So you'll see here I have 2 customers associated with my HWDSB company. Unfortunately, in this period, I don't have any sales for them, but you can see the metrics are all going to align to the filters that I'm applying here. I can get even more information on if they have credit that needs to be utilized, or what sales happened during that period, what price list they're a member of, if they're a member of multiple, my retail, maybe they're on a CSA specific price list. I can see that as well. And then another thing to engage and increase that average order value would be in my fulfillment reporting. Corinna spoke to having like a threshold or an order minimum. So with Local-Line, you can have the mixture of both. Maybe there is a minimum for you to get a pickup order. I'm not going to charge you a fee, but you do have to reach that minimum. Whereas on my delivery plan, I could opt to have a minimum, a fee that still applies for delivery. The fee can also be dependent on where that delivery is going. So it can be dynamic based on their zip code, their postal code, the radius. And then I could create a further ceiling there. I could say, if you order $50 from my farm or my local food store, you can get delivery. It's going to cost you $10, but if you bump that up to $75, you're going to get free delivery. So you can see you're going to lose a little bit on the margin there because you are relieving the delivery fee, but you're going to get more in the sales and the revenue. And here in the fulfillment reports, you can actually see what are people doing? Like, what are they opting to hit on that minimum purchase for delivery? Are they going well beyond what they would normally order, or are they just hitting that mark? And that'll give you more insights to kind of play around with what those fees should be, and give you more background into customer behaviors. Another thing that was mentioned was gaining new customers. I briefly spoke on things like flash sales. Another great feature in Local-Line would be that store credit feature. Maybe you don't do a flash sale. Maybe you provide someone with credit balance. So let's say I'm at a farmer's market or a pop-up and I'm talking to a customer. I can pull out my phone. I can add them here to my CRM in Local-Line, and I can let them know, hey, you're going to get an account invite to my store. When you hop on there, you're going to have $5 in credit. Expires at the end of the month, whatever period you want to say. And that's a great way to kind of convert on that new customer and add them into your Local-Line store, your e-commerce, and then you're going to have all those analytics on that customer. You're going to be able to see their orders. You're going to be able to search them up in reports. Or you could opt to do a coupon. You could have a coupon in a given sales period that you create. It could be a percentage or a fixed discount. It could be for all my retail customers. And you can see I can even limit the total uses or limit the use per customer if it's only for new customers. I could run it through the holidays. Lots of different options for converting on those new customers. Once they do go onto your storefront, you're going to have even more reports within the storefront reporting. So I actually love this section of reporting the most because it gives you insights on activity in your storefront, which is another important metric. You can see, like, when am I peaking? If people are not coming to my store midweek, maybe I do like Corinna mentioned, and I say, actually, eggs always sell out. Eggs drop on my store midweek because midweek suffers from a bit of lull. And then I can kind of get them hitting that order minimum. I know the weekend is going to be busy. People are going to be placing orders, but I want to increase the frequency of orders, as we mentioned. So I can play around. I can do things like that. It's as simple as turning the product visibility on and off. Again, I might know it's going to sell out. You just pull up some eggs here. And let me actually give myself some inventory here. Apparently I did more than sell out. But if I go into my eggs, I could create that scarcity, and then I could even go through in my inventory settings and I could limit the amount a customer can order, right? Maybe I say one per family. I can do that within Localine. Great way to engage those customers to get them ordering more frequently. And then within the storefront reports too, you can see a weekly period of the day. Maybe I use that for my direct marketing. Maybe I know when people are going to hit my store, and that's when I email them with the flash sale. Maybe I am using MailChimp. Maybe I'm using Localine directly to automate emails. Whatever you want to use, it's highly insightful to know when are eyes getting on my store, because that's kind of when I want to strike, when that iron is hot, and I can really kind of do things to influence it. A lot of folks mention that they're doing holiday promotions and creating that scarcity around the holiday season. I think that's fantastic, right? Because you might get a influx of orders during this given period, but then things might be quiet for a bit while people kind of take time to reset, reflect. So definitely good to know when people are viewing your store. And furthermore, when are they leaving? Why are they leaving? You'll see here we have abandoned cart metrics. Not only do we have the abandoned cart metrics with who that customer was, whether they were logged in or not. So if they weren't logged in, but they had a chance to type that email into any field, it's going to capture that. It's going to give you reporting on that metric. And then you're going to have the ability to actually turn on abandoned cart emails within Localine. So you can have automated emails going out to those customers who did not convert on the order, and you can regain that traffic or regain that customer, regain that order, and hopefully see them through the final step of the checkout. Yeah, so beyond that, doing a bundle is another great way, as Corinna mentioned, to increase your orders. We have new reports here on those boxes, so you can see what packages are within the boxes or the bundles. You can see which ones are selling the best. So maybe you create scarcity around that bundle. Maybe you put a specific product in the bundle that is only available, as we mentioned, in the bundle. And that's another great way to increase the average order minimum or order value. And you can get all the access to the reports within the product page here. Again, you can export them. You can filter by price list. If you work in a hub or multi-vendor environment, you can associate that with the particular vendor to get more detailed reporting on that. And then once those orders come through, the storefront tab is going to be your source of truth, your information on customer behaviors. I know we're going to open it up for Q&As as well, so happy to kind of dig deeper into this, but I think for a high-level view, hopefully that was helpful. Products, orders, storefront reports, and the fulfillment tab for the order minimum or the threshold.
That was awesome. Thanks, Kyle. Yeah, as Kyle said, we're opening it up for Q&A. So if you have questions for Corinna or for Kyle, pop those in the chat or in the Q&A. We have a few here to get started. So I guess I'll open this to Kyle and to Corinna. Question from Amanda here. How do you pick your order minimum? I'm sure it may be based on your product line, so veg versus meats.
I can definitely give my insight from the Localine side, but curious to hear Corinna's as well. I typically go path of least resistance. So as long as you're already on top of profitability and margins, I would set a nominal minimum that's close to what I'm already achieving, but meets the revenue goals that Corinna kind of put in her spreadsheet, right? If you want to hit 30% growth, maybe you just amplify it a little bit up to that suggestion or that anticipated growth that you're looking for. And you can couple that with promotions, with exciting new products, with, holiday gift ideas. That's the way that I usually suggest personally.
Yeah, so my comment here is I largely look at, is this still profitable? So, last spring, we were kind of running the numbers. We were looking at the data. We noticed that a lot of people were buying one item. And, it might be like a $6 item or a $5 item. And I was kind of doing some number crunching in terms of how long does it take my crew to bag these items and, put it all together. And, what am I paying them and how much am I coming out ahead? And just noticing that, man, there's just a pretty good percentage of one order type things, and that's just not worth it for us. And so I just decided I was going to test it, and I was just going to I looked at the number that I considered like a healthy number for us. Like for us, it was around $20 to $25, where I could see the numbers making sense. Like if everybody spent that much, then this is worth it for us to continue even offering this enterprise. And so that was just a question of me looking at all of the expenses that go into having an online store. So the time it takes me to put the things into the store, run the checklist, or run the invoices and pack slips, my crew to pack them, my crew to harvest them, all of that stuff was kind of put in there. And we'd look at the number and like, are we making money here? And we kind of saw, well, this is the amount we really need to be making. And that's how we came up with that number. I do want to just mention, though, one other thought that I didn't really bring up in my presentation. There does come a point, right, when you can't keep doubling or like trying to double your revenue, right? To me, there's this ideal number of store orders that we would like to do every single week. In our case, every week, for our online store. And I guess if it goes a little bit over that, eventually, okay, we'll adjust. Then we'll have to maybe get a bigger cooler and a bigger truck and scale everything. But there will come a point when I'm going to be like, I don't need to, double my revenue every quarter. Like I'm happy where I'm at now. So I want to make sure I say that. I just think this is a helpful calculator tool to help you see, like, if you have a number you want to get to, how can I step my way up there? So there. That was my little comment.
Yeah, yeah. And I think that's a great thing to add as well. Question here from Mike. If we're not using local line, how do you determine an active customer? They buy once a week or a month or quarter? I guess, do you have like maybe a calculation for that, Corinna?
Well, so the active customer so if you're running a report in whatever software you're using for the month of January, the number of active customers would be the number of customers who actually bought from you. That is the number. So you're not looking at all the people that could buy from you. It's just who did. And that becomes the number.
Perfect.
Does that answer your question? Yeah.
Yeah, I guess, Mike, if you need more clarity, let us know. Question for you, Corinna, as well. In your presentation, Marty's asking, what was the third suggestion you had to grow frequency?
Let me look at my notes. Hold on. My third suggestion. Create seasonal promotions that target specific buyers is what I wrote down.
Perfect.
Popular one.
Yeah, yeah, definitely.
Yeah, anytime you have a seasonal event coming up, it's an opportunity for you to pitch something. Very powerful. Definitely. I really liked Kyle's suggestion of using coupon codes. I wish I'd brought that up in my presentation. That's really brilliant. You can have a coupon code, not just to entice a new customer to purchase for the first time, but it's really great to deliver a coupon code after they've become a customer for the first time, to set up some kind of an automated email nurture sequence or something. And then you just keep trying to get them to take that coupon code and buy a second time. Because then what you're doing is you're coaching them to become a frequent shopper, right? Maybe you even have a third coupon code with a different kind of offer that shows up 2 weeks later to get them to buy again, right? So the whole goal is to create buying habits to increase it to that frequency level that you want to have.
For sure, for sure. That kind of reminds me too of like, I feel like bakeries do this all the time, where you almost have a punch card of like, on the 10th loaf or whatever it is that you're buying, you get like a free loaf, or you get 5% off or dollar amount off. That could be another way to help those shopping habits. Kyle, I guess this is more a question for you. Alan is asking, in boxes, is there a way for a customer to build a box from the current inventory? I.e., say the box cost is $30 and it includes 6 items and they choose which ones.
Yeah, it's a great question. So in local line boxes presently, it is a seller focused box. So if I go into my boxes tab here, and I take a look at my pasture pack, since the key to this webinar, this workshop is reporting, you'll see I can maintain my inventory. I can see reports on what is in that box. So here I've opted to put 5 pounds of my ground beef in, 1 2-pack of chicken breast, and 1 2-pack of pork chops. And then I can see my cost of goods, and I can set a price. So I can define that. I know your question was, can the customer? So presently, the customer cannot build a box directly like your typical CSA platform where there might be an algorithmic box builder. There are ways that you can kind of hack that and use that. Common local line use cases would be having a CSA price list where you offer store credit for the customer to build it from a price list of yours, or setting a very conservative box like you saw my pasture pack there. Maybe you put only the defaults, only the mandatory, and then you have the overlap or the preferential items in columns on your local line store. I can briefly show that, but as I mentioned, I know that's not really the sentiment of the whole meeting here. So I'm happy to send over any examples, or I'd recommend anyone book time with me and I can walk through your CSA or your box program directly in a meeting or a phone call if you'd like.
For sure. We'll share Kyle's link as well in the follow-up email, so you guys can book a session with him directly if any specific local line questions arise. Question here from Misha. Any insight on collaboration with partners to boost diversity of customers? And if so, how many partners is optimal?
Read that one more time.
Yeah.
There's a lot in there.
Yeah. Okay, it's two parts. So I'll start with the first. Do you have any insight on collaboration with partners to boost diversity of customers? So maybe working with other producers in your area. And then the follow-up question is, if so, how many partners or other producers should you work with? Is there an optimal number?
Yeah, I don't know if there's an optimal number, but I think anytime you can develop a relationship with another business that complements your product really well, like that's a win in my opinion. So I'm just thinking, like, we have a partnership with a meat producer since we don't do meat and we never have. And this coming year, we're changing that, and we've just created a partnership with Anderson Farms. They're going to put together a CSA meat or chicken box once a month, and we're going to pre-sell that in January. We're hoping, or we're asking them to please let their customer base, they have an email list too, right? Let their customer base know about our farm. We'll be creating bundles for their customer so that they can purchase some of our product in their store, right? So it's almost like, hey, I'm going to help sell some of your product through my e-commerce platform. And in return, maybe you'll do it for me as well. And in the process, people then come to relate the two brands together. And hopefully some of them if they buy from me, they'll get on my email list and vice versa. And we together, we become stronger. So I think it really just is a question of is there a gap right now within your product suite that you have no interest in? Like, I have no interest in raising beef and pork, like it's just not right now anyway. And yet I know my customer would love that. There's affinity between these products. And so it makes sense to try and create something to fill this gap. So I've gone out and sought out a person that could do this for me. And we've built this relationship slowly over time. Does that make sense? So I think looking at what is it that you see that you're missing and that your customers are asking for, that would be another kind of clue. Are your customers repeatedly asking, why don't you sell this? Or you should sell this? That can be kind of another trigger. And then I'm always looking at like value added type things because there's such a good margin there. So is there a way that you could collaborate with another business to buy some of the ingredients for something that could go into a value added product that you sell? That's another thought. Do you have anything, Kyle? Those are the ones that come to mind.
Yeah, actually, I really loved the example you shared of the farm in British Columbia that basically took their own goods, kind of distilled it through a chef, and then they had value added goods out the other end. So I don't know, they completely created a whole new product through collaboration and stuff like that is fantastic to hear. So yeah, that was my favorite example.
Definitely. We have a few more minutes here for questions. So if you have any other questions for Corinna or Kyle, please pop those in the chat. I have a question for Corinna. What would you say? I think this is kind of a question that comes to mind for me when you're thinking about changing up our strategies because we want to hit these goals. What's like an appropriate time period, or how do you know when your strategy isn't working or when you should pivot?
Yeah. So, I feel like one of the things that I'm going to be doing is looking at like setting a target of maybe like a month. Like I'll compare my month from last year to the month this year. I think that's one of the things that I want to be doing as I evaluate that. But I would say like 4 weeks. I don't think it takes a ton of time to like see if one of these mechanisms that you're trying to use is actually working. That might even be too long. But if you're like, hey, I want to try this special promo offer and see if it generates more people to come and purchase, and you run it for 2 or 3 weeks and nothing changes, maybe that would be like a cue, like, okay, that didn't work. I'm gonna go again. But it could also just be the time of year that you tried to run the promo. Maybe it just wasn't a good offer for that time of year. So it's hard for me to come up with a hard and fast rule.
No, for
Um,
sure. That makes
but
sense. Like look at all the parameters around when you tried it and
yeah,
compare it to data from, I like that data of this month last year because it's probably
yeah.
cheaper than,
I
last.
think I think more importantly is like don't give up on it too quickly. So it might be more important to ask yourself like what's the minimum I should run it.
True. Yeah.
So like definitely if it bombs, though doesn't do a whole lot the first week, I would maybe still try it again in another week at least and see. But you can also ask your customers. If you see nobody's buying, you could ask them why. Like, why didn't you buy? You can anecdotally just talk to a few people. You can get some information that way too. It's a good
I like
question.
I liked your answer on order minimum too and how you kind of perceive it. Um, you didn't kind of like overly think it. You weren't overly scientific with it. And one of my favorite expressions is more is lost to indecision than bad decision, right? So if you hem and you haw and you don't decide and you're already trending downwards, like what do you have to lose? Like speak to your customers, as you mentioned. If they're telling you why they're not ordering or what's going on, that's incredibly valuable. Or if
Mhm.
they're coming to you, as you mentioned, and they're saying, not even like, why don't you have this? What if they're saying things like, do you know anybody who has this?
Yes.
And then if you do, you can reach out and you can make that relationship. And then these customers already come to you. They're going to purchase those partner products directly from shared legacy farms or any
Yeah.
other farm.
Yeah.
Definitely.
I wanted to also, you earlier in the presentation mentioned briefly like the abandoned cart toggle switch inside of local line. All of you should have that toggled on. Like, just go do it. It's so easy. You don't even have to write the emails that are going to go out. They're already written for you, which makes that so easy. And that's because I think the average abandoned cart rate is like 60 to 60%. So if you see like a number that seems high to you, mine's even higher. I don't even want to tell you. I'm almost embarrassed, but it's normal for it to be high. And those have a return rate. Like when they go out, more people come back and finish the purchase. So if you're trying to get that frequency number higher, that is a super easy way to do it. And Local Line makes it super easy.
No, definitely. Yeah. That's just such an easy, like hands-off thing that
Yeah.
can help your AOV right away or your
Yeah.
conversion right away. A good insight here from Marty, just thought I would share. Through experience, some farms are overly focused on obtaining new customers, which you also mentioned, Corinna. Don't forget your existing customers. Take care of them by working to increase their AOV and frequency. Your business will grow.
Yeah.
Great.
Agreed.
Last question here from Jennifer, a bit of a brainstorm. Their lowest ticket item is $85 because they're selling beef and pork in bundles or in bulk. Any ideas for increasing those items by 30%?
Um, I'm sorry, which multiplier are you trying to increase?
She doesn't specify.
Okay.
Maybe Jennifer, you want to give a follow-up here?
Are you trying to increase the AOV or are you trying to increase the frequency?
AOV.
Okay. So if that's the only thing you're selling, I think that's what I'm hearing you say, then you don't have, like, I would say you need to create some other products that you can sort of tag on to that order, incentivize. Like maybe it's some kind of a bonus so that, and you'll have to figure out what is that 30% a lot to in terms of dollars, right? And then you kind of know the dollar figure of that product that you need to have in there. Yes, upsell at checkout. That's what I'm trying to say. So having another product in the product suite that will get you to that number that's priced at that amount. Does that make sense? That's kind of my first thought, because you're right. It's going to be hard to get your AOV to go up if you only have one item that's in there. You could upsell at checkout. You could upsell after checkout, to like even after they buy, you could have like a limited offer that's going to only be good for 24 hours after they purchased, or 48 hours after they purchased, to get something else. It's another thought. Kyle, on the spot here.
I think the beauty of the three keystones you shared is that it kind of illustrates exactly what the issue is. If you only have one product and we're looking at average order values, like we can't influence that without diversifying and finding new products, right? It kind of shows us where the choke is, or shows us where the pipeline's kind of jammed up. We need to look into collaborating, maybe making value added goods out of existing products, or stuff that would typically go to waste. And I see a lot of that too, like with folks doing goat milk and then making goat milk soap and things like that. So there's got to be something out there, but you'd have to find a new product or collaborate to get that AOV up. Something higher margin comes to mind.
Yeah, like, is there a complementary product that, is there a spice rub? Is there a, oh my gosh, what is that called? A marinade you could bottle up. Even if you don't do it, you get it from someone else. What are the things that people are consuming with that kind of meat, and throwing it in there and encouraging them to grab it while they go? It's one thought.
For sure. Norma suggested grass-fed tallow and lard. It's hard to find a high-end product. Also an idea.
Yeah. Bone broth.
Yep.
Yeah, some of these things that people would freeze that are in all of their recipes.
For sure. Last one here, I'm going to pass over to Kyle, just so that, because you still have your local line open. Question here from Amanda: how do you actually turn on your order minimum for delivery in local line? Maybe if you could quickly show that.
I'll quickly share my screen again. Just finish that. Is that visible to everyone?
Yep.
Perfect. Yeah. So you can do it at your fulfillment plan level, because you might be utilizing multiple pickup points. Maybe there's diversity amongst the minimums. Maybe one is the farm, and you're not going to turn away people who are willing to come on the days that you allow them. But you can go into your pickup plan in this example. And once I have that set, once I have the availability set, I can go and I can create minimum purchase right here. So if I go through this field and I say customers have to spend $30, nothing else is going to be charged to them because I haven't toggled on the fee. If I toggle on the fee, as I mentioned, this can be delivery or pickup. I can now say they need to spend $30. I'm going to tack on a $5 fee. Again, might make more sense for delivery, but I can also create a ceiling here, and I can say if they spend 50, they're going to get that waive. So when they go to checkout, it's going to be articulated to them that you're this much away from free delivery or free pickup, or you need to add this much to be able to check this order out. And that's a great way to increase or kind of upscale that AOV using pickup fees, order minimums, or delivery fees.
Awesome. Thank you for quickly showing that.
Nina,
Oh,
Nina,
yes.
I have one more thing.
Of
I was just
course.
thinking of the question before that, and I'm still
Yeah.
trying to like answer it for him. One final thought. So I'm I was challenged earlier to think about like different ways you could bundle products, because that's another way that you can increase the average order value. And there's all different kinds of ways you can create bundles. And I was just thinking like with pork, with the example that they had with just that meat bundle, like if you had like a thing you threw in next to it, maybe it was like a soup starter or a stir fry special. So it had vegetables that would go with a stir fry that might go along with that kind of a meat, right? So they can see this $85 package of meat, and then you're suggesting based on your bundles, like the different kinds of meals that could be made with that meat. Now, I don't know if you don't sell vegetables and you got to go partner with someone to find vegetables, but soup starter, stir fry special, salad essential, summer grilling. I wrote some other things down here, like a sauce kit. Um, Gosh, and not even with the meat, but like a pickling pack, a detox bundle, immunity boost bundle if you're a vegetable person, fermentation kit, mushroom bundle, grilling mushrooms if you had a mushroom pack. Yes, there's all kinds of ways that you could like make something that's worth that $20, $30. And they're like, oh, I want that one and that one and that one. So that was it.
Yeah, no, those are
Awesome.
great. Thanks for sharing those. I'm sure we can pop some other ideas in the follow-up email as well. But that is all we have time for today. Thank you so much to all the attendees for your great input, questions, ideas. That was awesome. Really appreciate that. As I mentioned, this is a recording. We will send everything out in an email. And I'll quickly just pass the floor to Corinna for any kind of final thoughts, or where can people find you? What else do you have going on?
My final thoughts, write these down on the wall. Customers, AOV, frequency, and look at it every day. These are the things you must keep your eye fixed on. Every initiative, every tactic, every strategy, every new product release revolves around these three. How can you get one of those three to go up? That's going to be a big difference maker. If you want to join me inside of Farm Marketing School, I'd love to have you there this winter. It's my membership, monthly membership. You can go check it out at mydigitalfarmer.com/FMS. It's where I'll be actually running a metrics class live next month in the month of January. We'll be reviewing this, but I'm also going to be showing some of the other metrics. And the goal of that project for 30 months is to help you build your metrics dashboard for 2025 so that you actually use it. So I'd love to have you in there.
That's awesome. That sounds like a great class. So definitely check that out. Kyle, any final thoughts? Where can people find you? Anything you want to end on here today?
Yeah, absolutely. So you can find me anywhere on the Local Line website, anywhere you see demo. We can have a conversation, chat. Maybe your question was missed on this session, or you're looking for more info on boxes or bundles or any of the reporting features we touched on today. I would encourage any and all people to give me a call, book a meeting. I can be reached at khaney@localline.ca. My number is 416-817-8046. Give me a call. Don't post on a bathroom stall. Happy to chat and jam on some reporting and metrics within Local Line.
Awesome. Well, thank you again, everyone, so much. We are planning on running tons of new workshops in the new year. So if there are any kind of hurdles or things that you want to see a workshop, topic ideas, those are always welcome. So please, you can email us or chat with us, find us on social, all of those places. And yeah, thank you so much. Have a great end of your year. Happy New Year. And we'll see you guys in 2025.
Bye.
Bye, everyone.
Thanks, everyone. Bye.